Oh, give me the sheep, boys, and free my soul. Don't want to get shot by a mean old troll. That's pretty lame. That's right. It's America's most sheepish podcast, The Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I'm a bad, bad boy.
I'm Ben Sheets, a.k.a. controversial rapper DeBobby.
Oh,
Lord have mercy.
there's also a ba pun.
What? So, sorry, I fell asleep. It's me, Cleveland Mosher. How are y'all?
I mean, I feel like that would have been better for Ben on this episode.
True. So it would seem.
But we're back. We're talking about the brand new, or relatively new, Icelandic horror film. We'll talk about that. Lamb, directed by Valdemar Johansson and starring Noomi Rapace and several other gentlemen who I'm not going to do the disservice of attempting to pronounce their names. That's what IMDb is for, if you're curious.
Bjork's cousins.
Yes. Well, I mean, of course. There's only like 3 people who live in the whole country, and one of them is Bjork. So by that assumption, then everybody is Bjork's cousin.
Yeah, I think
Correct.
Robert Eggers' new movie is double the population.
Double the Bjork.
Double the Bjork.
Yeah, so this is the newest A24 vehicle. I think this should be a pretty interesting episode, because I think for the first time since like the Green Knight episode, we're not all in accordance on this one.
But it's okay to think differently about things.
It is.
As you'll learn.
Ben, you did not like this movie very much.
I found it, you could say I found it pretty baffling.
Oh, okay, all right. Cleve, you did like this movie quite a bit.
I can't argue with the pun, but I do disagree. I adored this film. Yes.
And
adored shit. I thought it was pretty
Ballin'.
oh, there we go. Ballin'. Yeah. I thought it was that. I thought it was really good.
And once again, I'm somewhere in between you guys, but leaning definitely more towards Cleveland's side of things. I have overall positive feelings about this film.
It's a little different from Green Knight. You know?
Yeah, this is a movie where, even though I liked it, I can totally understand and to a degree even sympathize with just about any complaint you could level at this movie.
Same.
We'll talk about it, but before we do, I think a good way to ease into this movie is to talk about it in terms of its marketing, because it's a conversation that's come up a few times relatively recently. We talked about that in regards with Malignant, how the trailer did not really correctly advertise what type of film that was going to be, and I think this is another case of that, but in kind of the opposite direction.
I mean, man, I feel bad for A24 because I would have a really hard time figuring out how to market a movie like this.
Yeah.
It's very much a slow burn, kind of impressionistic slice of life movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And
The plot, I would say, is pretty thin overall.
Yeah.
In terms of like events that happen in the film, there's not a whole lot that goes on, and they're releasing it in like the spooky season, and pretty much all of the advertising around this movie, for the most part, outside of like director interviews, which I found quite contradictory to how the film was marketed. I understand why now. But the advertising around this film like definitely paints it as like a horror film, like the newest foreign horror from A24.
it honestly left me scratching my head because I saw pull quotes before we saw this movie, like the most visceral, disturbing movie A24 has put out in years.
Yeah.
This film will haunt you to your bone. And it's like,
Not
did
really.
we watch
Yeah,
the same
no.
movie?
I mean, I
Yeah.
love the film, but I definitely don't think that about it. So, okay, I have a number of thoughts. This is another great example of a film where I really wish I could go back in time and Men in Black mind wipe myself after seeing the trailer. I think a lot of the problems that we're encountering here, not all, but a few of them at least, are because there's a reasonable, I'll say reasonable, like amount of horror in this movie, but it's all given away in the trailer. Like,
Yes.
because this is a very slow-paced film, the trailer condenses it. Like, condenses a lot of those sequences, so it hits all the high points in the film. So we're left with, like, the slow sequences in between what we kind of already know is coming because we've seen the trailer. And if we didn't know going in, I think there would have been a lot more tension in the air for us.
There's only one real surprise in the film.
It's at the very
end. And
even still, like, it's kind of expected.
Talk about it. Yeah, we don't need to talk about it yet.
So, like, the horror was pretty well stripped away, and I'm largely blaming the trailer. Like, I think the trailer shows almost all of the horror. Yeah, I kind of wish that the trailer had, like, marketed it as less horror and just weird. Like, it should have gone for, hey, guys, like, I think the approach would have been, hey, guys, this is a weird movie, and it's a quiet film. And like, kind of brought in a little bit more of that into the trailer. It's hard to say, but, like, you got to put asses in seats. You got to show, like, your best moments, your snappy stuff. I get it. But in the same breath, so much of horror is the unknown, like, it's the reverse of comedy. Like, you're waiting for the punchline, the revelation. And we already have all the revelations going in. And it's a damn shame.
And there's this other aspect to, like, the film itself outside of the trailer. I do agree with you. Like, pretty much every single one of the aspects of horror in the film is shown in the trailer.
Yeah, and that knowledge strips it of its fear.
A lot of times it's even just shots, not even scenes. But there is a tone to the film that I think the score has a pretty heavy hand in, where even though the film isn't really a horror film, there's kind of, like, this constant expectation of, like, impending doom.
Dread.
And there's impending dread that sort of pays off, but I feel like it deflates a lot of the scenes because there's constantly this feeling of, like, something bad's about to happen, and then it doesn't really. There are a couple of moments where it gets very close to something bad happening, and it's like, oh, no, not really.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot of people talk about the dread of this movie, and to me, I didn't get that whatsoever.
It's mostly in the music.
Yeah, it's mostly in the music, and even so, like, I've seen weird soundtracks to non-horror movies before. To me, this movie, I mentioned it coming out of the theater, but it felt like A24's Stuart Little.
Yes,
like,
I believe the term you used was arthouse, Stuart.
Yeah.
Mechanically, yeah.
Which you're absolutely
on
right
paper,
about.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, on paper, for sure.
It feels like an absurdist drama about surrogate parenthood. Actually, follows similar themes to Titan in some ways. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the genre classification pedant because that's fucking lame as shit.
Sure.
But, like,
True.
It's weird to, categorize this movie as such a horror movie when I feel like that's kind of stripping of what it is.
I would agree.
Well, it's not solely horror, but it definitely falls in. There are many other things you can classify this film as well, but, like, there are plenty of moments in this film, like, especially to, like, going into it without knowledge. That
for
allow
me,
it to be
the
horror.
sense of dread was how many doors they left open. Like, do you know how to close your doors in Iceland? Is that not a thing?
I mean, I think that is also partially by design. A lot of the tension in the film is anxiety over this child, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting we'd be more worried for the parents or whoever else, and this child was going to be, well, we shouldn't spoil. I shouldn't maybe... Honestly, from this point on, we should probably just call it. Like,
yes,
we had very different
spoilers.
views. I adored it. I adored the film. If you haven't seen the trailer, even better, go watch it now before you, because that's, the whole point of my previous statement. And if you've seen it, I would still very much recommend it. It's a quiet film. It's maybe not as, like, full of action and, as vivid as some people might want out of a movie. But I really like a movie I can see.
It's not a film that I would recommend to probably most people. I would say... I also liked it. I would say check it out if you're into, like, artsy foreign films that are very slow with, like, a touch of the absurd and like an edge of darkness. If that sounds like something that's up your alley, check it out. If that sounds confusing and boring to you, give this one a pass.
Yeah, and, like, on one hand, I want to say wait till it's on VOD, but on the other hand, like, if you think you'll like this movie, it's probably best to see it in theaters because it is a very beautiful movie.
Aesthetically, yes. That being said, by the time this episode comes out, I doubt it's going to be anywhere.
Yeah, maybe you can see it at the art house.
We saw it
theater.
a week ago at the time of recording, which is 2 weeks to when it's going to be released, and there's one showing per day.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Let's get into it.
yeah, the story as at a glance is Numi Rapace and her husband live and work on a sheep farm in rural Iceland, and one day one of their sheep gives birth to a half-human, half-sheep child, which they then try to raise as their own, as a surrogate for their own daughter who died from something...
From them leaving the damn doors open.
The damn door open in events prior to the film taking place. The husband's brother shows up at one point, adds some tension that we can talk about. But other than that, that's pretty much the movie. There's something that happens at the end that we'll get into.
It has a good sheepdog in it.
It has a good sheepdog.
Very good
Lots
sheepdog.
of very good sheep.
As a proud owner of an Aussie Shepherd, always nice to see an Aussie. Always nice to see a shepherd dog. Yeah, very good dog.
Lots of aminals in this movie. Lots of very good sheep that I like a lot.
Good animal shots. I think this movie is a feat just on the
Well, it's a hoof.
or a hoof, or a paw. What the fuck was I saying? It's real hoof in respect to like its animal handling. It can't be easy to get shots like that. Like there are so many incredible sequences, both with the dog and also with the sheep, that I can only imagine being just a nightmare to wrangle. And mad respect, it all feels so natural.
I mean, the animals do feel quite emotive in this movie, which is pretty impressive.
And I think that one of the film's definite strongest suits in general is the sheep child, Ada, who is exceptionally cute.
Wow, yeah.
I would die for this sheep
Dude,
child.
and that's my point from a moment ago. I thought this movie, the trailer led me to think, this is one of the few subversions I think that remained. The trailer led me to think that I would be aghast at this abomination for the majority of the film. That I would feel
how they treat it.
Yeah,
like this little monstrous, like Caliban kind of beast child.
Yeah, well referenced. And yeah, I was under the impression it was going to be like that, where the couple are hanging on to this child out of more like desperation because they'd lost their own, and we were sort of going to be left in the middle as this thing probably ruined their lives or whatever. And frankly, that wasn't the case at all. It immediately won me over, and yeah, I thought it was the most adorable thing I'd ever seen. It's incredibly cute. The special effects are great. There's a number of sequences where like you can tell it's CG, but it's good CG.
Especially as the child gets older and is like running and walking around and doing things like, it's CG, but they do some nice tricks that are like it definitely they just got like a lamb and put like a little sweater on it.
Yeah,
or something,
they do practicals everywhere they can, and they even composite where they can. And for that, I have mad respect. I think that's like the best way to utilize CG. Is like only where necessary.
Think of the juxtaposition, the most visceral horror you've seen this year, and then Ada doing the little jig with the drums.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like also like right after Titan came out, Titan or whatever. Like it's just not comparable in the least. No, that's not what I got out of this film in any capacity. Who the fuck made that quote? Like, that's not in the trailer. Where did you see that tagline, Ben?
Critics. There
Dumb critics.
Yeah, there's a lot talking about how scary this movie was, and
as a critic myself,
it's like maybe only if you're like deeply horrified by the thought of like, what if a child had a sheep's head? Like, ooh, spooky, I guess. But like,
cool, we got that in the trailer.
But she's very cute, and like her interactions with the rest of the characters are very sweet. I do think there is a degree of, for me, like minor tonal disparity, because the majority of the film, except for like a few key moments, I found quite sweet, and there's just like constantly like the music and sort of like the dreary like gray atmosphere of Iceland is like telling us like, hold on to your boots, something bad's a comin', like something wicked this way comes. And I mean, like, by technicality, for sure, at the end, something bad does happen.
Sure, but it's not as grand as the score leads you to believe, I think is what you're saying.
It's not, and it feels like, we can talk more about this when we talk about the ending, but what happens at the end, like, the bad thing that happens feels like an external force acting on them from outside, when the way the trailer presents it is that it's like an internal thing, that like you said, like, that the sheep child is like maybe evil or something and like starts to corrupt the family, or maybe starts killing people or like turning them to Satan or something like that. Like, that's sort of the way that it's presented, because like the trailer shows a lot of stuff of like these people, like the people are going mad, they're going crazy, and there's this mysterious sheep child, and it's like, it's not really representative of what actually happens in the film. And then the bad thing happens at the end, like, comes from externally, bad thing happens, and then the movie's over.
I will say, it is external.
Almost makes it seem like it's The Omen with the sheep, where it's really not an evil kid. Yeah,
the external thing I do think ties in, like, to the plot in a very cool way.
It does.
I think that, like, that Ada does act as like a mirror in a very cool way.
You're not wrong, but it doesn't feel like a central enough part of the film. It doesn't feel like it's an important part of the core of the film. Not like the family story so much. Like, it gets the film going, and then it acts upon the characters at the end. And we can talk about the beginning to sort of like ease into that a little bit.
Do it.
The film starts with like it's like Christmas time, and there's like a snowstorm, and we're like moving through the storm like towards this farm, seemingly from like the perspective of something out in the storm. We can hear it breathing heavily.
Demonic sounding.
Yeah, something monstrous.
Bestial.
Yeah, something monstrous and bestial.
Monstrous is a much better word, because it's exclusively not demonic.
Yeah, and then like we
but you're
see,
left to wonder, which
we
I like.
see the sheep in the barn, and we hear like something walk in with like heavy footfalls, and like we hear its breath. And then, like, we see Noomi Rapace at the window, like, staring out into the storm, and, like, they're listening to some, like, Christmas broadcast on the radio or something. Jump forward in time to presumably summer in Iceland, I'm guessing, because, like, the sun never sets. It's constantly light, like, even when they go to bed. So I'm guessing it's the summertime, and that's, when the sort of events of the film take place. So there is kind of this, like, looming presence from without that has like entered their lives and is presumably the father of this sheep child. Like, that's pretty obvious, right? Like, I don't think that's really a spoiler. But once again, like I said, it's absent from pretty much the entire film, except for like one brief scene like midway through where it kind of appears again.
Have any of y'all read All Things Bright and Beautiful?
No.
It's a series. It's from an old like song or biblical quote. It's all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, etc. But it's a series of books about a vet in like northern England who delivers farm animals and other stuff. And it's a series of short stories, around that. And it's largely, from what I remember, like it's memoirs. It's like the author was a vet, or they're near truths. And this brought on a lot of that same imagery was in my head, though it's in Iceland instead.
Yeah, sure.
Like like birthing the sheep and all the rest of it. It felt and those sweet moments with the family, like it did bring me back and kind of remind me of like the sweet moments in those books. Because there are stories like that do get pretty dark, at times.
Yeah.
And they deal with like the real like trials of life and the beauty there as well. And
well, I mean,
I appreciated the variety like in this movie for that.
The film is very pleasant and like pastoral, and like a lot of the events of the film revolve around just like life on the farm, fixing the tractor, taking the sheep out to pasture, birthing the new lambs, stuff like that. Like, just very simple, but, there also happens to be a half human, half sheep child that's hanging around being very cute. Like, there is this sort of like overhead, like this dark cloud looming overhead is like, who is the sheep child's father? When is he going to come back to the farm? Because like, of course that's going to happen.
I remember showing the trailer to one of my colleagues and them saying, "Oh shit, the husband fucked a sheep," making it out like the whole movie was going to be about like the wife doubting it. She's like, "Look at the way she's looking at him. He's going to have to try and like, whatever." And I'm so glad the movie never touched on that. I really, really appreciate that the movie never like brought up the fact that like, yo, did the husband like fuck this sheep? Like there's never doubt in her eyes either. Like, because it would be on her, because like we get the sequence, with the monster, and like that's even in the trailer, where like it's coming in. We know that there's like some sort of large presence, and I really appreciate
just really torn up about losing their kid. He had to turn.
Yeah, they just appreciate wherever the kid comes from, and I just really appreciate it. They never bother going down that route. I feel like there could have been an opportunity for like the brother to say something along those lines, and I'm glad that they didn't even there. It was
like, hey bro, did you
this thing is half human.
Did you
like,
fuck a sheep?
Where's the human, like involved in the scenario? There's only one human male like around, that we know of. I really appreciate that was never brought into question.
Well, that's the thing, is like nobody ever,
I mean, they're in Iceland, they're not in Wales.
No, nobody ever really like
apologies to our Welsh listeners.
Nobody ever really like questions how the existence of the child is possible. Like, the brother sort of does, but even so, it's not even him like being like, how is this possible? It's like, why are you raising this animal? Why are you treating this animal like it's a human? It's not the how, it's the what. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to raise this animal?
This like abomination.
Like it's a human child. But even he isn't even like, have you not even stopped to consider like where this, like how this thing is even possible? Like, where did it come from? The parents don't ask at all. Like, when Ada is first born, like they like when they literally pull her out of the sheep, they share this moment of like looking at each other like, what the fuck? But from that moment on, they just immediately accept. They take her inside, they swaddle her. Mm-hmm. I will say, I mean, the trailer completely spoils it, but like setting the trailer aside, I do kind of like how long they go before actually showing that Ada is half human, because like they don't show it when she's first born, and for like probably a good 20-30 minutes after that, we only ever see like the little lamb's head like sticking out of like a blanket in a crib or something. Like, we know that in like the way they look at each other and the way they sort of talk, that there's something unusual about this sheep, but they go for a long time without revealing that it's like a human-sheep hybrid. Again, the trailer spoils this completely, but if you were to go into the movie having not seen the trailer and knowing nothing about it, I think that could be an interesting little subversion.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't feel like it ultimately matters that much, because, they don't really care about the how. No. I honestly, like, this movie plays like a comedy a lot of times. It does. For me. Mm-hmm. Because they don't really consider the how, and they just roll with it, and they just accept it. Yeah.
Well, it's not a matter of them like just rolling with it. It's denial. They've been given another chance at being parents. They are going to willfully look away at where it came from. That's all I read into it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much as denial, it's just like immediate acceptance. They don't care where it comes from. It's not like they're denying that it could have a strange reason for existing, but it's just they don't care. Like you say, it is a second chance for them. Something that a reveal that I thought was interesting is that like probably halfway through the movie when we see Noomi Rapace like at their child's grave with the little sheep child, we see that their daughter, who died for, you know, an accident or illness or whatever, was also named Ada. They just straight up gave this sheep child their dead daughter's name, which I did not expect, and I thought that that was like an interesting little revelation. It's like, man, they are really just like, this is just their daughter again.
Very
like
Teton, you know? It was surrogate and parenthood.
It's not like this is a new daughter for them to raise. Like, this is their daughter reborn. You know?
Yeah.
That's how they're treating it.
And the reason the comedy plays for me is, like, even the brother doesn't really question the how. And I think part of it is because of empathy, of understanding the grief and surrogate parenthood that they're going through. But also, there's some absurdism there at play.
Quite a bit.
That's inherently funny. The other thing is, like, one of the more interesting aspects of this film that plays into is the kind of dominance over animals that's at play between humans and animals.
Yes.
Because,
sharing the earth.
Yes, because through the film, you know, as Ada grows, the sheep mother, you know, kind of follows them around and is just, baaing at them.
Standing outside their window all night, like, bleeding. Yeah, like, knows that its child, its lamb, is inside. Yeah. I liked that aspect of it, too. I almost wish they had done more with it. They kind of do away with that aspect of it, like, pretty quickly and abruptly.
I mean, they do a little bit more in subtle ways. Like, for example, their dog, they don't even give the dog a name. They just call it dog. And, like, this is another example of them showing how they look at animals, especially as farmers. But, like, also the brother, when he's trying to become friends with Ada, he grabs some grass and starts feeding her like a sheep.
Like a sheep.
Yeah, at that point he's not trying to become friends. Like he's being, like, he's treating it like an abomination. Like the grass thing is like a shame thing.
Well, he's treating it like an animal, not like an abomination. He's like, this is an animal. This is not a child.
Right.
So I'm going to coax it with some grass.
Which one is like historically that's how abominations are treated. It's an insult to like how his brother and his brother's wife like feel about like this child is a human, and so like him doing that is like,
yes,
you know.
it's an insult to them. But I will push back on the abomination thing a little bit, because if you were treating it like an abomination, there is a level of disgust. Abomination applies something that is unnatural and revolting to you. And he doesn't treat her like that at first. He just treats her like an animal. He's saying, "Oh, you sweet little," you while he's feeding her grass, he's like, "Oh, you're such a sweet little lamb, such a cute little lamb." It's talking to her like an animal. It is disrespectful to the way his brother and sister-in-law are treating her as a child. It is condescending, but he's not treating her like she's repulsive to him or anything.
Yeah, and I mean, he certainly gets to the point where he feels like Ada is an abomination when, like, he takes her out and brings the gun and is getting ready to shoot her.
Well, I think there's an important distinction there too, and I do want to talk about that because that's one of the things I actually like about the film. Again, I don't think that is out of disgust towards Ada. Look at how the scene ends. He's unable to shoot her. The reason he does that is because he thinks that this is bad for his brother and wife, because they are raising what he believes to be an animal as a human child. They're clothing her. She's sitting at the table to eat with them. And he knows that they're obviously still grief-stricken at the loss of their daughter. The way I interpret it is he's thinking like, yo, this is not good for you. This is insane. Like, you're treating this animal like it's a child, so I'm going to take action to remove this from your life. And so he takes her out into the field with the rifle to put a bullet in her head and kill her. And that's one of the tensest scenes in the film, but it ends with him being unable to. He pointing the gun in her face, and he can't. And what's the very next thing we cut to is Noomi Rapace waking up being like, oh my God, where's Ada? Where's Ada? Like, running around the house looking.
Check through all these open doors.
Right, better look through all the open doors, look at the house. And what does she find is Ada and the uncle asleep in a chair with him, like, cradling her, holding her like a child. That juxtaposition is one of my favorite things about the movie. I thought that was really sweet, to take that, like, really tense scene where he's like, oh, he's gonna take their child out into the field and fucking shoot it, and then he's like, no, I can't do this. And from that moment on, he accepts and treats her like a child, like a human child.
I really like that read. I'll go as far as to agree and even say too, I wish horror did this more often. It's really gratifying when not every dark moment has a dark payoff. It's a lot more effective than a false jump scare. You know, we're looking into like the act of scaring. The act of scaring someone with a false jump scare where the friend jumps out instead. It's still startling. And here it can be really effective too, to have like a long arc of tension that's finished off with like a positive payoff. It's really rewarding. It's a motif. It's a mechanic that isn't like often enough used. I always like it when it's used in horror as well. And again, like we can debate all night and day like whether this is horror or not, but like that for me was quite gratifying.
It's a very heartwarming human moment.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think that the film does kind of do itself a disservice with that moment, however, in the fact that is the tensest moment of the film, and it never reaches that point again, I don't think. I like the rest of the film. I like other parts of the film, but that moment had me on the edge of my seat more than anything else the film does after it. And it almost feels as if the rest of the film is not quite able to live up to the emotional impact of that sequence, of the fear of him leading her out into the field in the middle of the night holding the gun, to then the reveal of him asleep with her in his arms after that, and that sweet moment. Like, that's such a deeply impactful, like, emotional tug of war that, like, I don't think the film ever quite lives up to it after
and
that.
I feel like in a lot of ways this movie is too subtle for its own good. By stripping us of many emotionally driven or emotionally charged scenes, like, it just starts feeling empty.
Interesting.
And like we certainly get an emotionally charged scene right there. And I feel like that strong emotion comes through and really drives the film in a strong way. And I feel like there are certainly emotive elements to the movie in terms of kind of finding those sweet, tender moments of parenthood. However, it's just not enough.
Interesting.
Keep me engaged.
For me, like, I really like the latter sequences in the film, and also found a lot of tension in them. Largely with the sequence when they're all drunk watching the game and the VHS tapes of the brother and his rocker years, which we're definitely going to get into. But I thought there was a lot of tension there with not knowing if Ada was going to leave the house, because we hear the footsteps outside and we know that the creature is, presumably near, and it's
because they leave the doors open.
And that whole like long sequence is, well, because at that point they trust Ada, and so that works. And
that is it is a tense moment.
And it's I believe that's dramatic irony, because like we know that the creature is showing up, like that it's outside because we hear it kill the dog and like its footsteps walking around. We get creature vision for a little bit, but they're not aware, and so like they would have no reason to think that Ada wouldn't be going or gone. And we get a number of shots where at first like Ada's in the room with him, and then Ada isn't, and I was powerfully anxious during that whole sequence, like as anxious as the brother taking him out, because I really didn't know what was going to happen at that point. Like the trailer, that was another place where like the trailer didn't lead me to anything.
But
and so I was wondering, like, is she going to come back? Is she not? And that had a really cool payoff, sort of a dual payoff, because at one point, after a little while of not seeing her, we do see her again inside the house, and it's like, okay, there's some relief. And then it happens again, and it's pulled out again, and I loved that. I felt like I was being played like a fucking fiddle through that whole sequence.
I feel like for me, again, it was too subtle for its own good, because ultimately it has no real strong payoff to the point where it kind of feels like it falls flat ultimately.
I find myself again between the two of you. I don't think I would go so far as to say that any of this movie feels particularly empty to me, because I don't know if
it's like too subtle for its own good. I think it might be like too subtle for preference, because like for me, I really appreciated that subtlety.
I think a lot of it is a little bit well, what I think is too subtle is I think that the creature, the unseen creature that is Ada's father, should be more present in the rest of the film.
Imagine if we voyeuristically, saw things from afar, see the sheep get killed, the brother aim the rifle from afar, almost through this creature's eyes
as it's watching the farm.
That would add so much more tension to the film. I agree,
and I think it would make it more of a horror film too. I think it would make it more of a true horror film, because like it sets up something really interesting at the beginning when we know that there's some sort of non-human presence that is out there, and we are reminded of it in that one scene about a little over midway through the film where Ada goes outside and we can kind of see like the creature's silhouette like reflected in her eye, and it's a cool shot. And it kills the dog, but then it's gone again until it suddenly shows up again at the very end. And I think that I don't even think it would have taken much. Like, I think you could have even kept the film at a similar length. It would have been the question of adding, a couple of dozen more shots to the film. I think that the father's presence needs to be felt throughout the film, because the film, especially with the soundtrack, is like, whether it's effective or not, that's a more subjective thing. But the film is definitely trying to tell you that there's something bad on the horizon. But I think the actual threat of the bad thing is too absent from the majority of the film. And it inserts itself at certain times, but I wanted to feel a little bit more tangible dread for the audio and visual cues that the movie was giving me, that's saying you should be worried. And every time I started feeling worried, that tension was pretty quickly taken away by like something sweet. And I think that the really heartfelt, emotional family moments, of which there are many in this film, and I like quite a bit, but I think that those would have been even more powerful if the threat was looming heavier for us. It doesn't have to for the family. They can continue to be oblivious of it. I think that's fine. But I think for us as the audience, we should feel that presence more tangibly. And I think that it would make the film all around more emotionally impactful. Every aspect of it.
I think that's an interesting take. It's not what I would want from the film, and I'll explain why. But I think it would bring more tension to the film. But I personally really liked that character, that creature operated as an act of nature, and that it was just gone for a long time, and we wouldn't know when it would come back, largely because I think, like, as what it is, it would be the kind of creature that would be gone. It would be way over in the mountains and hills, and like a fucking storm or whatever, it would just eventually make its way back. I personally really like that. I think the issue is more largely in what we were previously discussing, is just the payoff at the end, which I do think still is, like, on paper dramatic.
Yes.
I think it's more of a matter of execution, and I can see why like you'd feel like you wouldn't be getting enough from it. But I do personally like that there is a period of time where like that cloud is removed. And I always took like the dramatic stings and the tension. I should probably watch it again, but like I should watch it again. But like I took those dramatic stings and tension as just concern over Ada running away, being lost, whatever else like that.
I'll happily split the difference and say that I think that there can be a time where the storm cloud is gone, so to speak, to continue to use that metaphor, but the time for that is in between the beginning when it first presents itself and then the scene where it shows up again and kills the dog. If we want to have that part of the film where we're getting to know our characters, we're getting to know Ada, we're getting to know the brother, all of this stuff, if we want to have that sort of be pure and self-contained, fine. But if you're going to reintroduce this mysterious creature midway through the film and have it kill the dog and like have it and Ada see each other, then at least from that point until the end, then it should be like it should be more present.
Yeah,
like if it's not going to be present throughout the film, like it should at least be from that point until the end. That should be the building threat, because it really is like there and then gone and then it's there again and then it's gone until all of a sudden it's there again. And frankly, by the time it shows up at the end of the film, so much other stuff had happened and we'd gotten so many other like dramatic moments with the family and like with the characters that I had almost forgotten about it. That like, I mean, do we just want to talk about the ending?
Can I talk about the dog first? Because it plays into that. And I think one of the biggest problems I have with that creature is I feel like the choices they make with it muddy the themes they're going for with the film. It killing the dog, first and foremost, doesn't really completely make sense for me. The dog is one with nature. You know, if this is a stand-in for nature, there's no reason for it to...
Well, nature kills nature all the time. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's a force of nature. So that works for me. I mean, I never want to see a nice sheepdog killed, for sure. Like I do love me a doggo, and it was a good pupper. But I thought watch the Discovery Channel. Nature kills nature all the time.
In horror films, dogs are killed to prevent alarm. You know, like think of Halloween. Like the dog dies because they won't get alerted. But they're in a remote area of Iceland. There's no need for worry for that. And
they never even find the dog's body.
No.
Like we see like the dog's body like way out in the fields like later in the film, but I think that's the problem. Like I don't necessarily have a problem with the creature killing the dog. Like yes, it's an animal, so it's, you know, it's part of the natural world, but also like it's a farm dog. It's protecting the humans and the sheep, which are their quote-unquote property. It is sort of an extension of the humans' like infringement on this natural landscape. Sure, okay, whatever.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of a stretch for me, just because I feel like that's a little more than just, you know, a metaphor for the domination humans have over nature.
The problem is that the dog being killed serves no purpose.
Yes,
in the film.
correct.
Well, because here's the thing. Here's the problem though. If they come across the dog and there's a heartfelt moment, then a lesson has been learned, and we can't have our ending.
Then we don't have to kill the dog.
No.
What is the narrative purpose to kill the dog?
It shows that this entity is like a force of nature, like that it's coming through, and that it is like, at least to some degree, like powerful and malicious.
Well, then why doesn't it like wreck the barn and like let all the sheep out? Or like why doesn't it do something that directly impacts the human characters in the film, which it is in opposition to? I understand that that's the purpose of it killing the dog, but the fact that there's one scene where the husband goes outside and whistles and calls for the dog, and is like briefly perturbed by the fact that the dog doesn't come running, and then it's immediately forgotten about,
Shrugged off.
and completely shrugged off for the rest of the film. If this creature is supposed to be in contrast to the human elements in the film, if it's supposed to be in opposition to them, then it should, if it's going to act upon them, then it should do so in a way that has narrative consequence.
Well, but like, okay, if the dog had lived,
of nature.
if the dog had lived when they'd gone outside at any point, like, and encountered the creature, the dog would have been there, and that wouldn't have worked, right?
But they don't encounter the creature ever. That's
The very end. Like at the setup there, like that's all through the course of like that last day. Like,
why does the dog have to be dead for the initial encounter, or the encounter with the creature at the very end?
Because they're outside, they'd have the dog with them. They would, and at that point, the dog would have to die. Because like while they view the dog as utility, the dog does not view them as utility, right? And like that's the problem.
Why would the dog have to die?
Why would the dog have to die in that scene? The creature, I mean, we're just jumping into the ending here. The creature literally takes their gun and shoots the dad. It's not.
One thing I want to mention with this too is the father is the
think
only one.
The dog
in the
would be
film
acting as an
is
alarm
not
bearer.
particularly hostile to Ada or Ada's development. The mother shoots Ada's mother, and the brother almost shoots Ada, and the creature would see both of these presumably. And so to have the creature kill the only one that wasn't hostile to Ada, it's like
I disagree.
I read that a little bit different too.
Same.
Because the way the fact that it takes the gun and doesn't just like maul him to death, that it takes the gun and shoots him, which is a weird image.
I love it.
But it's revenge.
Yes.
It's revenge.
I'm taking something that you
if it's-
love, therefore, like you took something that I love. I'm going to take something that you love.
If it's
a return,
revenge-
it's a mirror.
I would have assumed that it would have killed the mother then.
No, that's not a mirror.
It's revenge on the mother. Noomi Rapace
Again,
kills.
like I said, you took something I love. I will take something you love. You will still live and see it as I do. That is a mirror. If it just kills her, that's not the same kind of revenge.
Yeah.
That's why I really like it. Like that's the whole point of it. That's why we need to see it kill before.
The mother sheep is an innocent in the same way that Ingvar, the human father, is an innocent, that it has no agency in what is going on. Its lamb is taken from him, and it just wants its child back, and it is met with violence on behalf of Noomi Rapace. So the creature at the end takes the gun and not only takes Ada away with it, its child, but it also shoots Noomi Rapace's husband, so then she now has to live with the loss. Like, that tracks to me. The reason why it kills the husband specifically makes perfect sense to me.
Yep. And if the dog had been there in that scene, the dog would have gone after the creature. It would have still had to kill it. They would have had to react to it, and it wouldn't have worked.
I don't think that's necessarily true at all. I think you like the fact that it's shooting him with a gun, which you can do from long range. Like the dog doesn't have to notice him at all, or the dog can bark and he turns around and takes a bullet in the neck. Like the dog dying is not integral to that scene.
You could easily have the dog whimper off and scurry away. That's the thing, is like this thing is such an incredible force of nature that the dog is afraid of it. Like it runs away rather than protect its master. Like there's so many ways you could have done it.
Okay, that I can bite a little bit.
Like
but even still, like I kind of
the killing of the dog as it stands in the film sort of just feels like a way to be like, hey, remember, there's this monster out here. Is coming back at some point.
Yeah, I think dramatically too. Like it's a nice like point of tension that builds. Like even just mechanically as simply as that. Like it's a hard and scary moment. Like for the audience.
It is. But then it's gone and forgotten about until it's not at the end. Like what I'm saying is, at least at that point, it should be more of a perceptible threat by the audience, rather than just showing up for that one scene, killing the dog. The people don't even notice the dog is dead, just go on about their business.
Well, I thought like while they're going about their business, like that whole time, like I was again, like anxious and intention because I didn't know when the creature was going to appear. In hindsight, sure, but like in the moment, like while they're going about their business, like it could come at any moment. I was expecting like it to be there like at the bus stop. I was expecting it to be there when he went out for the tractor, you know, like on his way out to the tractor, and guess what it was? It worked for me.
That scene played for comedy for me in a lot of ways. Seeing this big old sheep man with a gun.
Well, it's not like mortifying. I wasn't like pissing my pants at it or anything. Like I think that academically it says a lot of really cool shit. It isn't scary. No, sure. I think it is weird.
It's funny.
I think as an image, it is kind of funny. Just in the not necessarily like the concept itself, but the way that it's presented. Because like Ingvar takes Ada out. They're gonna go fix the tractor. You know, they're gonna go walk down the trail and fix a tractor, and it's gonna be a nice, fun, sweet father-daughter moment. And Numi Rapace is taking a nap or something, and she wakes up and she goes outside and she's like, "Hey, where is everybody?" She hears a gunshot way off in the distance. We're like, huh? What? Smash cut to the first time we actually see this creature, which is just a big CG sheep man with a gun, and it's like the shot is like head on. It's looking into the camera, like the camera is looking down the barrel of the gun, and it's such a ridiculous, like absurd image that like I laughed. I don't think it's necessarily ineffective, but it's just like it's so absurd and so not what I was expecting for the end of the film. Like I was kind of expecting like a sheep man or whatever, like some like it
has a cool design.
You kind of see its silhouette. Like I was expecting like a troll or something, which I got, but just like it's a troll, but just like staring down the barrel of a gun that is like too small for it is just like
it's a funny.
It is comedic, but like
kind of funny,
like, and I like that about it.
I don't know if it's supposed to be though. I don't know if it's supposed to.
I
think it is to a degree
with the dark comedy elements of this film. For me.
It works.
The thing is, I agree. I don't know if it was intentional.
I think there's a degree of it. I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be binary. I think it can be all of these things, right?
Sure.
Like, and that's the big takeaway is that like, it is absurd, and for the same way that Ada is presented the entire film, like almost comedically, it is as well, where there's comedy, but there's also like concern. You know, like there's a multitude of emotions to take in with that. But like, I'll give it like comedy is definitely there, very present in that.
I will say I don't love the CG of that creature. The rest of the CG doesn't bother me too much. Like it's not terrible. Like it doesn't look bad per se, but I don't know. There was something kind of jarring about it to me in a way that I didn't love.
To me, it felt like what Ada would look like when they grew up.
Very modestly, you know, this big monstrous creature.
Are you looking to this thing to like hang like goat dong? Is that what you're looking for, Ben?
Yeah.
Y'all looking for some goat dong?
Monstrous.
I think the goat ass is enough. I appreciated it.
I don't know.
Because to me, it was like, whoa, like this thing is like, what really got me about it is like how large it was. Like it was, it's huge. It is like troll sized. And that wasn't necessarily as expected. I was expecting something like more like normal size, like the goat head would be proportional to a goat, like demonic monster.
I was imagining something big because when we hear its footsteps, they're very heavy.
Yeah,
I was imagining something big. Like I was imagining just a straight up troll. But I don't know. There's something.
It's cool. It's cool because it looks like a big Ada. Like when Ada grows up, Ada's gonna look like that, and that's neat.
Like you're not wrong in that regard. But I think that especially the way it's treated in the rest of the film, like I think I was looking for something maybe a little bit more monstrous, or I don't know, maybe it's just that it used the gun. That's just like I understand from a narrative perspective why, like you say, like it is the mirror, like it is executing Ingvar with the gun in the same way that Maria executed the sheep with the gun. Like I get the parallel, but it's just not what I was expecting from the creature's reveal at the end, because I knew we were going to get it. I knew we were going to get a reveal of this creature at the end, but I wasn't expecting to just show up with a gun.
No one was.
And just shoot dude. And like,
Sure.
there's something so inherently funny and absurd about that I'm unable to look past it to like the cool big scary goat man. Like I have a hard time separating. Like it's just funny to me, and it's not like scary or monstrous in the way that I needed it to be.
Here's what I think would help a lot. More after. I think that the issue for me was not necessarily the what of the payoff, and not even entirely the how. It was just the how much. Like, it was a grandness. Because again, like you said, like the tension is played up throughout the entirety of the film, and it would have been really cool if there was just a little bit more. I was hoping to get just more of essentially anything. So here's what I would like to propose. What I would like to see is just the film continuing for just a little bit longer. We have our moment where she sees her husband taken from her, sits him down, and then she tries to go out after this fucker. And it's just like going over the hills, going over whatever. We get lots of epic, grand whateverness of her just trying to hunt this fucker down and inevitably failing.
And saving that for the sequel.
Oh, no.
Lamb 2.
There's not
That's
Lamb
not
2.
going to happen.
Judgment Day.
No, that's not what we need. But like, and it doesn't need to be much longer. Like, I'm talking like 4 or 5 minutes, you know, like of her eventually like falling from exhaustion, of eventually like not being able to catch up with it, or just being like fucking smacked down by this thing or whatever. But just give me just a little bit more, and seeing too like how Ada can be at peace with this creature, or not necessarily at peace, but like Ada can fall back into the natural order with this creature. And that's essentially that would have been nice too, to get some resolution with Ada, because the film does such a good job of me like wanting to relate with this creature that, I mean, for fuck's sake, like the title is like in reference to it. Like we're here for the lamb, and it would have been nice to see like Ada as a troll. Honestly,
I'll do you one better. I don't think I would like to see Noomi Rapace like go after.
When I say hunting down, I just mean running after, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think I would like to see her going after this troll creature in like an attempt for like revenge. Like, I'm gonna kill you for killing my husband and get my baby back. I think what the tone of the film would be better suited to is, I think it would be interesting if she has this sort of moment of contemplation where she's standing over the body of her husband, and she sees the troll and Ada like on a distant hill, like maybe standing looking back at her, and she has this moment where she decides that her desire to be a mother outweighs all else, and she decides to go join them in the wilderness and adopt them as their new family. I think that would be really interesting, because it would be interesting for
very
multiple
witch-esque
reasons. Yeah, exactly. Because like,
damn, I didn't even thought of that.
It would be interesting from the perspective of like the troll, which killed her husband in revenge for her killing Ada's birth mother, but in accepting her into their family as a way of saying like, I have punished you and now I forgive you, and her also meeting that forgiveness mutually and being like, you killed my husband, but I want to raise this child. I want my child back, so I'm going to join your family now. Obviously,
I'm about to say, because like if she's gonna like be raising it like as a mother with this goat thing, are they gonna fuck? Like, where are we going with this?
We don't
save that for the sequel too.
We don't need to get into those details. I don't think that. I mean, I know you're joking, but like, I don't.
I'll say I'm joking. I don't want to get into those details.
I don't think any of that stuff is important. I think the what is suggested by her joining this family is, I mean, yeah, maybe they do fuck, but that's not like it's it's the absurdity of that act and the things that
it would match the absurdity of the rest of the film. Sure,
it would be the absurdity of that act and the things that it implies and the questions that it raises that makes it interesting. And I don't want an answer to any of those questions or those details, but like. It would make sense, right? Like, what is she going to do? She lives and works on this sheep farm out in the middle of nowhere. She's already lost one child. A troll has come along and taken her second and murdered her husband, leaving her alone with nothing. So what does she do? Go back to the farm and continue to live in despair with nothing, or pursue the simulacrum of a family? Yeah. And she's already accepted a lamb human hybrid as her daughter. So is it so outside of the realm of possibility that she would accept a weird
lamb husband,
a weird goat troll as like a surrogate husband, or if not a husband, at least a father for her daughter? I think that would be an interesting way to end the film.
Interesting. Okay, so the pro-bestiality option. Okay.
It's no. It's not.
Now you have to defend that.
It's not about the sheep fucking. Listen, it's not about the sheep fucking. It's about.
It's only incidental.
So now you've made your agenda
what I'm
clear.
Trying to say is that it's about family. That's what I'm trying to say. It's about family. It's not about the sheep fucking.
The more you say it's not about the sheep fucking, the more it sounds like it's about the sheep fucking.
Because you keep bringing it up.
Oh man, that's good. I will say though that I think she could also go back to the farm in acceptance. It doesn't necessarily have to be in despair. I think that really, to get to the nugget of it, we just needed to like get her like long-term response to the situation.
Yeah.
We just need to see like how she takes it in and accepts it. That would have been nice because it would have given us as the audience an opportunity to do the same.
Sure.
And in any capacity, it could have been her going back to the farm, whatever. I think being alone would be good, because we see the stuff with the brother, and I think like that being left as it is would have been good. But like, I think that would have worked. Now, though we've addressed the end of the movie, I do still have a couple of other points leading up through it that I would like to talk about. Sure. Things I enjoyed about the film. Largely, I really, really like how the tractor is utilized. I really like as a plot device how it is talked about throughout the entire film. It is ever present. And it ends up being sort of the demise of the husband, in that like he's going all the way out to the tractor, like he's isolated on his own. And that's when he's vulnerable to the monster, especially because he doesn't have his fucking dog with him. And so like that works really well for me. Like I really like that it's constantly referenced and brought up. And organically, I never thought anything of it when it was. It was only like by the end of the film that I realized like, oh yeah, this thing's been giving weight the whole time for this reason.
Well, yeah, I think any farmer would tell you that their tractor is a very important part of their life.
Listen to most of country western music, but also the tractor operates in another way. It is given the same value and utility as the animals. It is a tool, much like how they perceive dog and sheep.
Yeah.
And I like that. And it's needed. It's needed in that capacity as well. So, like, the tractor is really important, I think, and worth mentioning. And also, I said we'd need to come back around to it, so we should do it now. Holy shit, that VHS sequence where they find the brothers' EDM music. That is one of the funniest goddamn things I've ever seen.
Very funny.
His like early 90s synthwave music video thing.
With the weird dances.
What is it? Europop?
Fucking Eurobeat.
Eurovision. Eurovision shit, yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun. I like that whole scene in general where they're like watching the handball match. Handball's a weird fucking sport. That I guess
never even heard of it. No idea what that is.
Countries like Iceland care about more than we do. Yeah. But yeah, like that's a fun.
It ain't football.
It's like a fun, sweet moment where it's like, oh yeah, we're all drunk and the game's over. Guess what I have? It's your fucking VHS from your music video like 20 years ago, and it's like fucking late 80s, early 90s like synth Eurobeat bullshit, like very like Aha or like Erasure, that kind of bullshit.
They're all standing at like varied distances, bobbing their heads to the left.
Ace of Base,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like all these like Scandinavian like synth pop bands from like the 80s and 90s. It's very fun. I liked that moment a lot.
Yeah, the brother character in general.
I think he's the most interesting character in the movie.
By miles. I mean, he's flawed, so like there's that. I mean, all the characters are.
They're all flawed, but like he's the one who I think gives the audience the most range in terms of like our feelings towards him, because he does seem to like generally be a good dude, and like he does have plenty of sweet moments with Ada, but then there's also the scene where like he takes her out to shoot her, and the multiple times where he like comes on to Maria, and like there's
I want to get into that too.
There's some implication that the way I read it is that they have had an affair in the past at some point, and he's trying to reignite that, and she's like no, because every time he does it, she's just like, no, don't do this, you're spoiling like a nice moment.
He sees her in the bath because they leave every goddamn door open in this fucking house, and he's like, I think I saw you because you wanted to see.
I think you left the door open so you wanted me to catch a peek.
Well, one thing out of fairness too, we should probably also mention when it comes to like old farmhouses like that is they don't all have central heating, so sometimes you want to leave doors like that open so that heat can make its way into those rooms. That is another point I've been sitting on as well. That where it does make
this
sense.
House isn't the most production design wise thought through. There's a million different light switches. When in Iceland, it's bright out for like 20 hours a day. Like just a baffling amount of light switches in the house.
You have to think the inverse of that is because in the summer it's light all for
all
like
the
20
time.
hours.
Yeah.
Then in the winter it's like dark
That's
for
true.
that same
I mean, this is likely an actual house in Iceland.
Yeah.
Like it's not a set.
Probably not.
I mean, if it is, it's a damn good one. Point being, it's like we don't live in that fucking culture. Like assume it, and the people who made it do. So I don't know. Like I'm gonna give some credence on that front.
I will say on the subject of the people who live in Iceland and Icelandic culture, this film is the highest grossing Icelandic film of all time in Iceland.
Hell yeah.
It
You go.
immediately shattered all of those records like opening weekend. I mean, we do have to consider that this is a country with a population of like 300,000 people.
It's also their second film of all time.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that there are a lot of American films shot in Iceland.
Of course.
Correct,
Yes.
but
the thing.
this is an explicitly Icelandic.
What's that one with Bjork in it? The
Dancer in the Dark.
Yeah, Dancer in the Dark and
and
other ones like that doesn't count.
Secret Life of
because it's like
Walter
technically
Mitty.
an American film or whatever.
There's a billion films set in Iceland.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
for
it's not
sure.
counting any of those.
No, we're talking Icelandic productions, a truly Icelandic film, not one shot in Iceland, but made by an Icelandic cast and crew,
Which is like two. So
which is, for sure, not very many films. But it did like break all of their records opening weekend, so like good for them.
Yeah.
It is their. I did read that it is their submission for the 2022 Academy Awards for Best Foreign Film.
Yep,
Good
of
for
course.
them. I don't think it will win anything.
No, nor do I think it deserves to win anything.
Oh,
But I
well,
think
also the
it's
Academy
funny
Awards are-
because
Yeah, also I don't.
So
give
it's
a
like
shit
I don't
about
that doesn't really
Iceland
matter.
got their highest grossing film because a trendy art house film
because of
brand picked them
A24.
up.
Yes, because of A24, for sure.
Do you guys have any other points? I want to go on a little bit of a rant here.
Okay,
And throw a rating at the end.
go for it.
Okay. Not since Freddy got fingered I felt like there been a better practical joke on theatrical audiences.
Wow.
I think this movie is a straight up parody of A24 and art house films at large, from the totally unnecessary chapters placed into this film to the paint drying monotonous pacing of this film to the very flat color palette to the absurdism taken with complete seriousness and no irony. This film plays up a lot of tropes of A24 and art house films and lays them right in front of you. I think people are going to eat it up without realizing the absurdity of all these tropes being thrown at them.
Okay.
I think this movie is very hollow and there's not much to it ultimately beyond, the joys of parenthood. I think this movie is pretty shallow, honestly. And the biggest laugh I had in the theater was when I saw that Bellatar executive produced this film.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Because Bellatar is a master filmmaker, one of the greats of all time, and to see his name stamped on this film just kind of elevated the art house parody element of it to me. And the fact that this movie played for comedy a lot of times for me just elevated that as well. I think this movie is kind of brilliant in that respect. I think it kind of nails the art house tropes to a T, and obviously Ada is fucking adorable, but as a whole, as a film, it was not for me. I think it was shot well, and I think it had nuggets of good things, but this film, again, I feel like it was a practical joke played on the audience, and I don't think there's really as much to it. I think it's actually kind of pretentious as a film and just kind of hollow. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
Well, I'll rebut to that slightly. Like, I don't think you're wrong for disliking this film. Like, you're entitled to your opinion for sure, and it has problems. Yeah. But you describe it as a parody or as a joke played on the audience, but also say that most audiences will eat this up. And Cleveland and I both liked it. You seem to be the one who really disliked it.
Also,
so it sounds like if it's a joke played on anybody, it's a joke played on you.
Also, I would like to bring up too that like you called this movie shallow, but like you needed to have like the mirror part explained. I don't know. Like I think there was more to the movie than like first impressions.
Talk about the greater themes of this movie beyond parenthood. What is this movie trying to say?
Sure, happy to. Well, everything we've been talking about over the course of this episode, right? This movie has a great deal to say in respect to how we view nature, how we view like animals on Earth, like as tools, as utility, and not as like living beings. Until there's a personal element attached to it. Like, that's the whole point of the movie. That's the whole point of the lamb. As soon as they graft humanity onto the lamb, it's treated as a person. Like, again, like, that's why they don't call, like, they don't name their dog. They just call it dog, because these people, like, view animals as utility, but they view humanity differently. So when she kills the lamb, or so when she kills the sheep mother, like, she just views it as, like, throwing away a tool. She just views it as, like removing something, like throwing away trash in that respect. And so, like, when her husband is given the same respect, or lack of respect, the mirror is turned on itself. And there's a really cool revelation there, I think. I think it's neat. And I don't think it's apropos of nothing. I don't think it's for the sake of nothing. I think it's all largely by design and thought out. And, where, like, again, too, like, you're welcome to feel bored by, like, the longer, like, ponderous sequences where we get to see the mountain and, like, all of the valley. Like, I really enjoyed. I like a movie where I can, like, sit in it and enjoy it, and that's fine. But
I like slow burns too, but there has to be serious weight to that where I don't feel like that was well developed enough to warrant it.
Yep, and I disagree, which is fine. I got a great deal out of this film. I think it works well. I think that it tells things earnestly enough, and it's largely aware of the comedy. And it plays at both. It's very European in that respect. There are several emotions you're supposed to take from any given scene. It's not just exclusively comedy or drama or horror or whatever else. It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of all these things. It's a soup. And I appreciate that. I really like that in a movie. So I'm gonna give it a solid 4. I really like this film. It did a lot for me. I want to watch it again pretty soon. And I really appreciate, like, what this movie had to say about, like, animals and how we view them.
Yeah, so like I've said, I'm again between the two of you, leaning slightly towards Cleve. I think that Shallow and Hollow are doing the film a bit of a disservice, but I would agree that a lot of the film's themes are, I think, underdeveloped. I think that there are a lot of like nuggets of these things, like a lot of good aspects to it that I think I would like to see developed a little further. I would like to have more of the impending threat of the troll monster throughout the rest of the film. I think that would further enhance the theme of the animal versus the human. It would further blur that. I mean, after all, the troll is a animal human blend. It is a sheep and a man combined. So I think that having that be more of a presence in the film would elevate that theme a little bit more. Ultimately, I liked this film. I didn't have a bad time with it. It's very slow. It definitely left me wanting more in more than one regard, but I enjoyed it well enough. I think it's well acted. Aesthetically, I liked it very much, and I love the beautiful little sheep baby. I think she's precious, and I would do anything for her. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Not a bad film, but I think definitely needs some work to be elevated to the greatness to which it aspires. And confusingly does have Belatar as an executive producer. I mean, like,
who is that?
Belatar is like a Hungarian like art house director. He makes extremely long, slow, black and white, like deeply philosophical, character-driven films.
I mean,
in a lot of ways, I think he is truly one of the greats, but I do think he is kind of a caricature of European art house cinema.
Well, that's the thing. What's so funny about that element to me is Belatar is the proprietor of slow cinema, but he also makes these movies with incredible philosophical and emotional weight to them, where like putting his name on this film kind of tries to almost give it an emotional or philosophical weight in my head where it doesn't have that.
I mean, I'll just
it's odd to me because like I have no idea who that name is, I did get a lot of philosophical.
I'll just put it this way, like I'll just put it this way, like. It's not like they just pulled Belatar's name out of a hat and slapped him on there as an executive producer. If he wanted his name attached to this movie, there's a reason for it. I don't think this movie is it's not really the nature
of production.
I don't think this movie is even half as deep as like any of the Belatar films that I've seen. Like it definitely was a bit of an absurd shock to see his name as executive producer in the credits. Like I was like, wait, what? But like he obviously sees something in this film, so I don't think like he wouldn't put his name on it otherwise. So I would say let's not unfairly dismiss all of its merits. Like
I just found it funny because
I thought it was kind of absurd too, but
there's definitely like funny moments in the movie.
He saw something in it, so he wanted to executive produce it. So here we are.
Yeah, comedy does not necessarily have to undermine any of the rest. I mean, look at like so much of like French philosophical comedy. There's entire genres of that.
Anyway, that will give Lamb an average of 3.2 out of 5 pods. Next week is Last Night in Soho, right?
Yep. Hell yes.
I think we're all excited about this one.
Oh yes.
The new film from Edgar Wright. I think his first real foray into like true horror. I mean,
we'll see how
Shaun of the Dead, but that's like satire. Anyway, we've been seeing the trailers for Last Night in Soho for fucking ever, and it looks rad. Every time I see the trailer, I'm like, I can't wait to see that movie. So that'll be next week. Last Night in Soho.
Oh shit! I hear new rattlings upon the shelf.
The sponsor shelf has replenished itself through unnatural means.
Oh my god. Wow. Okay, well, this week was brought to you by a nice bowl of cereal, but instead of milk, it's blood. It's blood.
Blood
in your cereal, and don't be a ethereal. It's blood. It's blood in your cereal. Go drink it. All my fellow vampires out there, or whatever the fuck. There's no milk in your cereal. It's blood. That's our sponsor this week. Blood in your cereal.
Thanks, blood in your cereal. We couldn't do it without you.
Mm-hmm. We really couldn't.
All right, that does it for us this week. If you like the show, do the thing that I normally tell you to do. Go leave a 5-star rating and a review for us on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. It only takes a couple seconds of your time, but it helps us out in an exponentially beneficial way. So please do. You can also, if you so choose, become a subscriber to our Patreon at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. We've got a few different reward tiers over there. If you join the highest tier, the honorary Pod Boy tier, you can suggest films for us to watch on the show, and you'll get a special shout out like Sam Simon and Sarah Morris, who are our honorary Pod Boys. Thank you. We love you. And I know y'all are listening. Little kisses of appreciation.
Thank you.
I'm sure that was good for people's ears. If you can follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod and at letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod.
I hope for some people it was too good.
Too good to
do good.
Do good.
After you.
Whatever. Our Letterboxd, if you go over there, you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to the episodes in which we talk about those films. You can follow me on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake if you want some bad content.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And I'm occasionally tweeting for Light Arc Studios. We put out progress on It Stares Back. Stay tuned real soon for, is this going to be coming out after Halloween?
Yes.
Okay, well, go to YouTube and check out the spooky showcase from Dread XP. We just put out like so many new trailers for our games. We've got a new trailer for My Friendly Neighborhood. We've got a new trailer for Dread Delusion. We've got a new trailer for Spookware Episode 2. We've got a new trailer for Sucker for Love, which is going to be coming out relatively soon. Stay tuned for all of those amazing games. Wow, there's some awesome stuff like coming out from Dread XP right now. So go check them out. Oh, and go check out their website because we just did an awesome by this time we'll have done an awesome redesign on the website. And you can look at all the cool games and stuff we've got going on. So go check out Dread XP online, and and of course check out our work with Light Arc Studio on It Stares Back as well. Our awesome real-time strategy RPG horror game.
New content coming soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of weird genre crossovers, strategy horror. But that's it from me.
All right. That'll do it for us this week. We thank you, as always, for listening. And, beep, beep. Here come the sheep.